Biden was a senator at that time pushing that. Congressional Black Caucus was telling him to push that. We have to take into account Bill Clinton. He was in office. Hillary Rodham Clinton, the presidential candidate in 2016, obviously she was the first lady around that time, but all of them are connected to that.
And Biden took credit for that.
Biden took a lot of credit
this is the Biden crime bill. That's what he used to say. 86 mandatory minimum sentencing, 88 crack laws, 94 crime bill. President Biden was like, that was me. I did that. So yeah, somebody like that who has systemically caused a lot of black and brown people to go to prison, that's the type of stuff you literally owe black people. Like, and you can do that with a stroke of a pen. You don't need Congress to vote for that. You can say, hey, I'm pardoning everybody on a federal level who's in prison right now for a nonviolent drug offense.
But he hasn't. And because he hasn't, what about folks on the right who would say, see, that's them. That's not us. Why y'all constantly looking at us? Why not look at them and what they're not doing? Because they're giving you lip service. At least we're straight up about where we stand and who we are. That's what kind of positions they would take in terms of their policies and their politics per se. What do you say to that?
I would say that, that's never going to garner anybody black to want to vote for people. I think that there's a misconception that when you see President Biden losing some black voters, and there's this overstated number they keep saying for Republicans, like 23% of, if the election was held today, 23% of all African Americans would vote Republican. I don't ever see that happening. But I think just because you see people leaving the Democratic Party doesn't mean they're going to be Republicans.
Right.
That couch is real, y'all.
Yes.
Some of these people are just going to stay home in November.
But then that begs the question, who does the couch work for? We know who it could work against, but who does it work for? If you're the Republicans, let's just say for the sake of argument, I'm looking at some numbers here, I'll throw them by you, a percentage of votes by party for election year. 2016, 19% of the Democratic voters were black. 1% were Republican. 2018, 16% of Democratic voters were black, dipped 3%. Still, only 1% of Republican voters were black. 2020, the presidential election, 19% of the Democratic voters were black, tying 216. 2% of the Republican voters were black. And then in 2022, which they thought was going to be, a red wave and didn't turn out to be that way, 17% of all Democratic voters were black. 1% of all Republican voters were black. So I guess what I'm looking at is I'm looking at these numbers right here. And I'm saying to myself, if you're Trump and you've got some black MAGA Republicans who are willing to support you, bro, I'm looking at numbers right here and we're talking about, okay, it's not 2%, it's not 10%, but what if it was 4%? What if it was 5%? That could swing the election.
I don't know, because they're losing a lot of white women too.
Okay.
And
Roe v. Wade?
Yeah,
Okay.
and a lot of white women white women really are the reason Donald Trump got into the White House the first time, but nobody ever brings that up. You know what I'm saying? They always want to point the finger at black people and black men and black women. No, really black men, but really white women were the reason that Donald Trump got into the White House in 2016. And a lot of white women, I guess because of Roe v. Wade, they are moving away from the Republican Party. So I don't know how much of a difference 4%, 5% sways an election.
So you're saying you don't think the black vote's going to sway the election. You think the female vote, the women vote is going to sway the election.
I can see that more so than, the black vote, because, that's what I'm looking for in November. Like, Roe v. Wade is a big issue. I can't believe that it's not more people out there in the streets every day tearing it up because Roe v. Wade got taken away. And I think that, women are very strategic, right? So I think, come November, it's going to be a lot of women that remember that, because Trump is out there saying, I'm the reason Roe v. Wade is gone. He kind of moved away from that rhetoric, but those sound bites are still out there.
Yeah. And I don't think he cares, though. I think he thinks it's going to work for him.
I don't see that working for him. Because women, that's black women, white women, Asian women, Jewish women. You got all of these different women that might mobilize in November.
It's a double-edged sword. On one hand, here's what I believe. I think it's a situation where, okay, you have an abundance of women out there who are pro-choice. How dare you, as a man, as anybody, tell us what we have the right to do with our body, right? The flip side is you have an abundance of Republicans that can say, there's a whole bunch of women out here who were pro-life. And they were the ones that compelled us to do this as well. So I don't know whether that balances itself out. It remains to be seen. I think that's what we find out in this election, according to what you're talking about.
Yeah, I agree. And even if you look at like the midterms, I feel like that was an issue for them. That red wave that you
Yep.
spoke about was supposed to happen.
That didn't.
I think Roe v. Wade was a big reason why it did not happen. So I think in November, I think you might see a lot more women come out than you think. But the reason I push back on what people say about the black vote is because don't blame this on us. You know what I mean? Like when you look at the approval ratings for President Biden, his approval ratings are down with everybody. You know what I'm saying?
4 different polls.
That's what I'm saying. Young people, independents, black people, Latinos. So like, don't just put that on black people. Like, they got to figure out a way to energize America, period. Even after the State of the Union, his approval ratings didn't move at all. And then I think I read a study that said 1 in 3 people under 30 didn't even see or even hear about the State of the Union.
They kept it on their TVs and they were doing something else while the TV was on, but they weren't listening to them.
But once again, Democrats do a poor job at messaging. You mean to tell me that every single network on TV damn near was carrying the State of the Union, and 1 in 3 people under the age of 30 didn't even see or hear about it?
And you know what nobody else brought up? Because, listen, I didn't watch it on Fox. I was watching another channel, but I think Fox carried it. And what I said to folks is, Fox carried the State of the Union. That shows you how not worried they are about Biden.
That's right.
That they actually carried his State of the Union. They are not fazed by him at all.